Thank the Force. It's Thursday night once again, and I'm joined by my fellow senseis. Jedi Masters, Nate and Luke for another Skeleton Crew talk, plus a lot of other interesting things in the Star Wars universe. I am Tyler. I told you guys right before we started, I got senseis on the mind as my father and sister introduced me to Cobra Kai on Netflix, and I actually have Netflix right now. So I've been watching it, and then had a funny moment teaching where Cobra Kai actually came up through a student. I am not teaching about Cobra Kai. I'm putting that out there. It's inappropriate, but when a student has a connection moment with the show, you take advantage. Then I find out that the cast is coming to MegaCon, where Luke and I will be able to hang out. So I'm excited. I'm gonna hop in that line for sure and let them know some of the funny stories that my students have for the cast of Cobra Kai. But how are we doing, my fellow Jedi Masters? Luke, Nate, the Skeleton Crew is here. What are the vibes like? We got some interesting stuff to talk about. Some breaking news. A new episode of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Old Republic is getting brought up once again for the 1000th time, and James Mangold made some of the dude bros mad.
It's just another week in Star Wars, as far as I'm concerned, with that rundown. But yeah, I'm excited to get into all of it. It's good to be here and good to it's really cold right now in Minnesota, and it's snowing, so just gotta ignore it all and chat some Star Wars.
Hey, it's 41 in Orlando. That's basically -10 for Floridians. So you have to keep us in your thoughts for the cold that we're enduring down here.
Yeah, not to throw any shade for everyone who's going through it's over on the West Coast, all the fires in LA and whatnot. Our thoughts and our prayers are with all of you who are dealing with whatever. Hopefully you guys get all the support that you guys need. It's really rough to hear about what's going on out there.
Mm-hmm.
Our issues are nothing compared to what you guys are going through.
Right. And we have, people on the team that live out in the West Coast, and, we have lots of readers and some listeners over there. So hopefully that all settles down very quickly. I honestly, it's one of those things where you see the pictures and it literally looks like it's a CGI movie, like you were watching like some $200 million budget film. Like you can't even believe it's real.
Yeah.
But we got a lot of Star Wars to talk about tonight. So if you are struggling with whatever in your life right now, sometimes it's good to escape to some Star Wars, and that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to have a good time talking about a lot of fun Star Wars things. But Luke, I have to ask, who is this special visitor that we have that's making her way into the screen this evening?
Jesus.
So I don't know if you guys know this, but I did travel to Lothal recently. Just trying to meet with some friends after the Empire was taken down, and I actually picked up a Loth cat from the planet. So
is it Sabine's?
It is not Merlin, who is Sabine's cat. It's not her. I would never do that to Sabine. Sabine, you can have your cat. I just, took Merlin's brother or sister, Merlin's sister. So, sorry about my Loth cat getting on screen tonight. But also, Nate, thank you for bringing up the West Coast. I know that there are some real tough times out there. There's some tough times even here in the Midwest as temperatures are approaching 0 degrees, and negative in the wind chills. So tough times all around, but that's why we have Star Wars. It's a place to escape to. It's a place for fun. I am really looking forward to this episode tonight.
Can I share a quick story that just shows how horrible of a person I am, but is kind of humorous in a way?
I would love to hear that.
So I have a friend in my grad school cohort that is in the hospital right now. He's doing okay. He's gonna be fine. But I was texting him. He's let me know he's not gonna be there. We were letting him know what's going on, and he asked if I could, take some notes for him. And also we were gonna do this thing because this new professor we have. He says he's actually a really good professor. I want to throw that out there. Great professor. However, my friend made me aware that he says the word like an extreme amount whenever he's lecturing. And I have never noticed this. So I was thinking it can't be that bad. So I decided I would do the tracker tonight for him since he's, in the hospital. I was like, well, we'll keep track of how many times he says the word I'll just start making a tally mark. And class is usually anywhere between 2 and 2.5 hours long, right? And I had to stop after 40 minutes because I was at 122 tally marks. At 40-minute mark, it was 122. And I said, I
That's
cannot,
3 per minute.
because I'm gonna look like a serial killer over here, just making these dashes all over a paper. He thinks I'm taking notes, and I'm just over. And then I felt like a jerk because I'm like critiquing this professor who's helping me along my journey. But it's also hilarious that 122 in 40 minutes, and that's in the midst of people giving introductions of themselves to him. It was fantastic. Great lesson though. Learned a lot about the history of the legal actions and education that in the impact across the state of Florida. But was the word of the day. I don't know if that says more about me or more about my professor, but that's what happened. I thought you guys would find that interesting somehow.
I love that.
Yeah.
But 122, it's quite insane. So let's get to the news, shall we? We have 3 bits of news that we're going to talk about before we get into Skeleton Crew, because it was a big week for Star Wars. And the first bit happened just an hour or 2 before the show. Like, I'm getting out of grad school class and I checked my phone for some updates. And sure enough, Rory McCann, Jeff Snyder reports, is going to be the recast for Balin Skoll. Of course, the late great Ray Stevenson passed, and there was a lot of question marks about will this character be recast? Will they move forward with the character? And if so, who would take on that role? And I don't think I saw anyone fan casting or predicting someone like Rory McCann taking on this role. I'm not really familiar with any of his work outside of his role as the Hound in Game of Thrones, but I know I loved him in that role. He's tremendous talent, tremendous actor. He has the size, the gravitas maybe to pull this off. And I was excited when I saw him as the name. That was one I wasn't necessarily had my eye on, but I was excited. Where are you guys with this announcement?
All right. Well, I am much closer with you, Tyler.
Up at once here.
I'm much closer with you, Tyler. I am not familiar with his work outside of Game of Thrones, but I did really love that series, and I really liked his work with the Hound and him and Arya together. We don't know what his relationship with, I'm talking about Balin Skoll's relationship with Shin Hati is going to be like in season 2, but I could see how he's already kind of played a character who is a mentor-ish to a younger woman. So I think that he has the skills able to like pull this off. I'm really happy that there is a recast. I'm really sad that Ray Stevenson has left this world, but it didn't feel like that character came to an end. So I'm really glad that we are not forced to like write him off screen or anything like that. Like, we can continue the character. I love that he's going to step in and do this. So I'm really excited for this because it seems like he's going to have some crazy journey in season 2. So I'm ready for it. Give me Ahsoka season 2 immediately.
I'm ready for it. Nate, are you ready for it?
Absolutely. I want to pull up our article here. If I can figure out how. Yeah, there we go. I want to get the wording right on this. So the news came from Jeff Snyder. If any of you guys aren't familiar with that name, don't worry, because the Hollywood Reporter confirmed it. I'm assuming with Lucasfilm. But Jeff Snyder is a reliable name in the industry, even though he is sometimes hit and miss, but that's besides the point. But I wanted to get this little bit verbatim from our article because I think it's just a nice little detail. In that McCann was a friend of Stevenson's, and according to the report, would have received the widow's blessing. I think that's a nice little thing to just keep in mind about all this, because it's such a tragedy what happened to Ray. And obviously everyone is still hurting that's involved is still hurting from that. So just knowing that Rory has some connection to the family, I think is going to help with the performance, and just kind of ease us into this. It's not what any of us would have wanted to have happened, but I think it ultimately is good the direction they're going, because it's going to be tough to fill Ray Stevenson's role of shoes, no matter who was going to take it. But just knowing that there is a tie between the two, I think that's a really nice little detail, and I'm glad that Jeff was able to get that into his report. So I just wanted to highlight that little bit of it. But beyond that, I'm excited for the casting. I think Rory is an awesome actor. Obviously, he's great in Game of Thrones and some other things. I don't remember him from Gladiator 2. Apparently, he was in that movie. I don't remember him being in that movie at all, which is kind of sad. So I don't know what that.
I think he's the general, one of the generals, that's the leader of the Centaurians for
Might be
the evil emperors. He doesn't really have a major role. I think he just kind of
that's not a slight on him at all. I think that's more of a slight on the movie itself. That I can't remember faces that well from that movie. But that's another topic altogether. But yeah, I'm just excited to see what this looks like. We talked about before the show, but some of the dialogue that Balin Skull had to use to get his message across. It's going to be kind of funny to see the Hound go about that and how that translates. But hey,
he's 100% capable. There are many moments with Rory McCann in that show where he just wows you with his presence, and he
had a lot to that character. There's so many layers to that character.
I think he can pull it off. I was excited, especially the physical prowess that he brings to a role too. Like the presence that he has is going to be perfect for the role. It's really hard to describe. Like we talked before about little lines that Ray would just deliver in such a enigmatic way, where something as simple, like I said before the show, where Shin would look at him like, "Do you miss it? The order?" And he just breathes in, and you're just like leaning in to see what is he going to say. I miss the idea of it. And he almost is making you yearn for a day where the Jedi are back, where you remember what the order should have been. And will Roy McCann be able to pull that off? I don't know, but this was the kind of casting that made me excited for the role again, because what I didn't want to happen was, and I'm not saying that this was ever a concern, was some run-of-the-mill recasting where I don't think anyone was really juiced up or jazzed up about who was going to be in this role. Like you have to fit so many boxes in order for like me to even be excited about the situation. And this checks enough of those boxes where I'm pretty much on board. Like physical presence, I've seen Rory McCann deliver some killer lines and monologues in Game of Thrones that were just deeply impactful. And like Luke said earlier, to another female that he's mentoring in a way, so he'll be able to slide right in. And Nate, you mentioned this earlier, that character, or Luke, you mentioned that character. We know his journey's not over. And it's going to be nice to see a friend of Ray Stevenson's be able to, like RG says in the chat here, take the mantle up for his late friend. And I think that's going to make it feel cool. It's going to make it feel really, really sweet as we watch this. And like Luke said before as well, I need this now. 2026, like we have Andor. I don't think people realize that as weird as Star Wars has been this year, we have Andor coming up this April. And then we get to spend the next year getting press, getting stuff for a movie that comes out next May, and then a massive show that gets released later that year that I think could be just pretty bonkers in terms of what they might try to pull off Star Wars wise in that. So we have a really fun time like ahead of us, and they should be probably shooting and filming another movie while all of this is going on. So we might be entering into, dare I say, a really exciting time for Lucasfilm. But how many times have we said that before, only to be slapped in the face? But Luke, you have any other things you want to add here about Rory McCann before we move on?
I don't think I've got a whole lot else to add. I'm really happy for the guy that he got it. Well, I guess it's not super confirmed, but it seems like it's leaning that way. So I'm happy for him, and I'm ready for this. Or orange lightsaber, please.
Oh, I mean, we've seen him pull off some big time like sword fights, sword duels, where he's just these powerful blows. It's powerful. And so
if anything, he'll be even better than Rey in that regard. And that could be a lot of fun.
So can't wait. It's going to be exciting. We have a lot of exciting Star Wars ahead. So next thing I wanted to throw out there was something that I feel like we've beaten this drum to death since Disney acquired Star Wars. But for whatever reason, here we go again. There was the rumor that's been circulating that there is an Old Republic show in the works at Lucasfilm for Star Wars. And like I said, feels like we've beaten this drum a dozen, 1,000, 1,000,000 times. However, it's circulating right now. And I just have a couple of things to say about this. And then I want to throw it to you guys. Number one, I feel like they have had a Old Republic something in the works at Star Wars for a decade now. What that means, I don't know. It could be as simple as a sticky note on the board. This is our idea. We're just trying to figure out when the right time to make this happen is. Two, as much as I would love some Old Republic, I think now is the wrong time to even kind of bring up an idea of a show centered around this era, because I don't think right now there's a lot of trust in Disney Plus Star Wars after Skeleton Crew, which has been fine. I've enjoyed Skeleton Crew, but it's not some groundbreaking show. And then after The Acolyte and everything that happened to The Acolyte, I think if they were to come out here in a couple months and this is like the next big, main platform Disney Plus Star Wars show, I think you would receive a lot of excitement, yes, but a lot of like, oh no, Kathleen's gonna ruin Old Republic, or Disney's gonna ruin the Old Republic, and I don't think we need that right now. I think we need to wait, if anything like this gets announced, until after the waves of Andor kind of maybe bring back some excitement. We get some movie news. Star Wars needs a big win before they announce like a big swing like this. That's just my opinion, but I don't know. You guys may feel a little differently about the Old Republic in that regard.
I do think you're right. I think it's way more risky than people think it is, than people will assume it is. I think that the era of the Old Republic, I think the idea of what the Old Republic is has a lot of people behind it. I am never really convinced that many people really know what they're talking about when they get into the Old Republic. I'm going to say that I don't know the nitty gritty of the Old Republic because it's purely legends. None of it is transferred into canon. A lot of it is video game and comics. There's a couple novels that are there. And so it's like video games, comics, and novels. How many people are partaking in those? Because I don't feel like it's a large percentage of Star Wars fans. Most Star Wars fans watch some of the shows and the movies. So I feel like even if you gave Disney Plus a Star Wars or an Old Republic series or movie, I think most people would be like, well, this isn't what I wanted. This is what I asked for. This is like, I don't think people know what they actually want. They have like an idea of what the Old Republic is. They don't really know what it truly is. And
I think it's a gold mine waiting to happen because you have Jedi versus the Sith at their true peak of being.
It has so much potential. I think people
Sith
realize
Empire and the Jedi. I think that it could take off. I just think under the current construction of Lucasfilm and the current climate of Disney Plus, like, are they suddenly, because Andor is the only show they've had where they've consistently had these longer, drawn out, dramatic episodes, and under the current climate of Disney Plus, I think, like, for me, if we got the quality maybe of show that we've gotten over the last year and a half in Star Wars, and coupled with the fact that if you're dropping Old Republic and there's going to be 25-minute episodes, that you're gonna feel more cheated than anything else when it comes to some
Yeah.
Old Republic stuff. Like these need to be hour-length episodes that look and feel really, really big. But Nate, where are you on this? On the I'm not even giving credence
my
to the
God.
rumor, but more of, would this even be the right time? Like, what is the right moment for something like this to happen?
I concur with everything you guys are saying. I don't even know if I give the rumor much credence at all, because it comes from Daniel RPK, who is more hit and miss than Jeff Snyder in regards to Star Wars to begin with. Then there's the other factor that you touched on, Tyler, that in development means literally anything. There's such a wide spectrum of what that could mean, but I'm not going to go any further on his work. I know he does a lot of work on his Patreon. He works really hard, so I'm not going to poo-poo on his work. It's just a rumor. Who knows? To the second part of the question, I don't know if Lucasfilm can do the Old Republic justice. At its current state, as you mentioned, I don't know if it has the cojones to really do what needs to be done with the Old Republic, because it is an absolute gold mine. It is an absolute gold mine of great, lovely stories that could be awesome to see on the screen. If they do a Knights of the Old Republic series, show, whatever, give me it. Give me it. I will watch it, but man, if they don't take their time and really have the right talent, it could be a total disaster. A total, complete disaster. If we thought the Acolyte was bad, I don't know if we're prepared for what could happen if they mess up Knights of the Old Republic.
Right. Well, because with the Acolyte, the High Republic, and for even High Republic fans, we're sitting here going, this doesn't really feel like, I don't think I didn't even claim it as a High Republic show. Like, I really didn't, because of, and that era is not necessarily one there's not a lot of established lore, or, there's not these diehards, and, the Sith aren't necessarily even around, quote unquote, around at that time, visible. This is, like you said, this is a gold mine. This is a swing, and if you hit, you've entered in a new golden age for Star Wars in terms of money-making potential films. However, I would say that Lucasfilm pre-Last Jedi could have pulled this off, because it felt like we were actually we were willing to take some swings, because they took a swing with The Last Jedi, and then ever since then they've just been reeling in terms of movies, in terms of finding their footing in projects. But right now, like I said before, and Nate, you echoed this as well, they'd be shaking in their boots to even do something. And the problem is they would try to probably play it way too safe. And this is an era where you want to go big. You want to say, like, we're gonna really throw this out there, and it would have to have like a grand scale to it. Obviously, Game of Thrones kind of stands on its own, and that's kind of
it has to feel like Game of Thrones.
But it has to feel that grand and that big, and you can't just go 26-minute episode.
That epic of a scale. It has to be a Game of Thrones type thing. It simply has to be. There's no other way to do it right. I was listening to the Christian Harloff show the other day when they were talking about this with John Roca, and they brought up a name. And he would never do it. He would never do it because he's talked so much about how tired he is after doing Andor. The only person they have in-house that could possibly do this right now is Tony Gilroy. That's the only name they have that could possibly pull off a Knights of the Republic show. But there's no way he will do it unless they pay him a cajillion dollars. So
I could see that for a couple of reasons. Like, he has the cojones, like you said, to pull it off. Like, he would be flat out, I'm doing this. You cannot tell me no on this, which is pretty much what he did for some Andor. And, he has goodwill built up with fans as well. Like there's not this strong sense of, oh no, is Tony Gilroy gonna pull it off? Universally, a lot of people's favorite, Disney Star Wars movie is Rogue One. It's not mine, but it's a lot of people's, and most people that watch Andor really enjoy it. But this comment's interesting that Simon Kinberg's trilogy is definitely Old Republic, not, I think he means 9, 10, or like 10, 11, 12, 10, 11, 12, right here. But part of me does wonder if Kinberg could be developing some sort of Old Republic something set off in the future. I'm not, it's just a pure speculation game when it comes to that. But honestly, I think if we're thinking 5-10 years in the future, Lucasfilm's like next big movie thing, maybe we have some Rey stuff going on. Like that seems like a natural direction for us to explore in terms of like to me that's a feature film level of I don't trust a Disney Plus show right now to do Knights of the Old Republic. I kind of want this on the big screen. But
I will say something else my mind is linking to. It's just super small and quick, but like the Skeleton Crew series we got right now has mentions to the Old Republic. It's got the most canon Old Republic lore drops that we've had since canon was established in 2014. That there's these crown jewels and there's all this, there's stuff there. So I kind of feel like that's maybe why the rumor has circulated. There's probably not a lot of part of truth behind it, but I could see why it's circulating now is because it's kind of like it's being mentioned in the show that's coming out. So that's the only thing that makes sense to me is like why this is even circulating is it's kind of being talked about in the show. So I don't know how much truth is there.
So anything else, Nate? And then we move on.
I actually want to bring this comment back up from Manslayer, talking about Gilroy could make it in terms of Star Wars visual. I think between great dialogue and craftmen versus Star Wars visuals and aesthetic, I think the latter is more important if I had to choose. And I agree. I think Gilroy and Andor, Tony Gilroy is an enigma of a Star Wars creator. He does things so different from everyone else at Lucasfilm. It's kind of hilarious to watch how he goes about things. He talks about how he doesn't care about this, that, and the other thing in terms of Star Wars lore and whatnot. When in reality, if you watch Andor, I think that man cares way more than he lets on. He has to bring in. He's talked about this, how he brings in people to like help him understand this world better. If he were to do a Nice Old Public show, you better believe he will go the extra mile to learn everything that needs to happen for that show to make sense. So I think he would level up to what's required to do that. I just don't know if he would, because he's been on record with how much even Andor has just dismantled everything he knows and loves. So, but I do think Gilroy could level up to what would be required to make that show work, because he's shown it with Andor and how detailed he is willing to go with that. So,
so
that's all I'll say.
I want to come back to this comment from John later, because I think this is a really interesting Skeleton Crew comment about, do we think they could go forward with a second season? Could the show evolve, mature like Stranger Things is doing? Like, I think that's a really interesting conversation to have. But we do have one more piece of news we're going to talk about, and then we're coming right back to this comment, and then we're getting into episode 7. And that was James Mangold being quoted as saying he's not interested in being handcuffed to lore. And I think this was a classic example. Mangold obviously doing the Dawn of the Jedi film set 25,000 years in the past, and they're close to a first draft of that script probably being done, reportedly. I think this was a classic taking a little snippet of a full quote and a lot of people just running with it, because if you kind of read what he says,
I will take some fault in that headline. It was purposefully a little baity.
Yes.
But yes, go on.
But at the same time,
click on the article and read it.
Click on the article. But at the same time, though, Mangold is someone that, similar to Tony Gilroy, I think, in the sense of he will speak his mind. and he will say exactly how he feels about what he is creating. And that line actually didn't make me go, oh no, are we in trouble with a Mangold film? No, that actually made me go, yes, this is the person I want at the helm of a Star Wars film, because there's going to be, with Filoni now being this chief creative, like, executive officer, there's going to be plenty of lore gurus that are going to be traveling around in the rooms, like, helping out. Give me someone who says, I'm just going to create something fresh, something new. And that's why I want to go back to this time period, because I don't want to have to worry about, who someone's nephew is in Star Wars, and how I have to make sure that that person's, third interaction is not with someone he's met before. And he said, I can do my own thing. I have the creative license to do that. And I'm going to tell my story. And then I'm sure they'll have, quote unquote, lore checkers in there to make sure he's not doing something that completely breaks everyone. But give me someone that's, not so hell-bent on, being so lore focused and so hyper focused on getting all these little characters to interact in unique ways. Like, give me someone fresh for Star Wars. And Mangold is a professional. He's an adult in the room. And Lucasfilm needs that with some of their films right now.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I concur. I have nothing more to say than thank God. Thank God for James Mangold wanting to, committing, just flat out saying, I don't want to make a film where I'm going to be handcuffed. I'm going to have restrictions. Lucasfilm, we work together. You guys know my work. Let me play over here, and let's see what we can do. And everyone has taken that handcuffed out of lore. It's taken it so far out of context, partly because of some clickbaitiness. Whatever. That's the business, ladies and gentlemen. That's the business. Sorry. Sorry if you didn't like my headline.
It made me chuckle. It made me chuckle.
Hey,
I clicked on it to read further.
Yep,
got me.
Brought in some good Twitter hits, baby. Let's go. Come on, we need it right now. But when you look at the full quote, he straight up says the reason he is doing this movie where he is so he can do virtually whatever he wants. There is nothing here in this part of the timeline. I don't even know if there's really anything there in Legends, besides maybe some that book. I haven't read it. I don't know what it talks about.
What book is that?
Dawn of the Jedi, which takes place 25,000 years before.
Does it talk about the first Jedi? Does it talk about the first Jedi and the birth of the Force?
That's a book.
It is. I can't say I've read it, so I'm very sorry to have pulled that up.
This is a Legends book.
Yeah, it's on the planet Tython. It's the Jedi Order. So yeah, it's like the founding of.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't read it. I'm sure he's going to use that book as some sort of inspiration, but like,
well, I think that
book is just a recreation. The movie's just a recreation of some random Legends book.
And if it is, awesome. Let the man do what he wants. Like, just let him tell the story he thinks he needs to, and hopefully the powers that be at Lucasfilm can guide him as needed. I'm not sure what the story group is doing these days. I don't know if they're even around anymore with some of the stuff we're getting in the books and comics. That's a whole other story.
I was going to say, you shared that.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic for another time. But just let James Mangold be James Mangold. Let him tell the story he wants to tell.
Let the man cook.
He is capable of some fascinating stories if you just let him be. Just let him do his thing. That's all I'm going to say.
Let's get into some Skeleton Crew now for the second half of the episode. We have a penultimate episode that just dropped this week, episode 7 of Skeleton Crew, and obviously ended on a pretty crazy cliffhanger, honestly, for that episode. And before we get to that, though, I just want to get a vibe check from you guys. So John Mitchell says, do you think they will go forward with Skeleton Crew for a second season? I think the show could evolve and mature like Stranger Things is doing, and have the show grow up with the kids. Now, I am under this is my, put on my hat now. I think with all some of the cost cutting that's going on over at Disney, the reallocation of resources, where I don't think the priority for Star Wars is going to be Disney Plus moving forward. I think the priority is going to can we get feature films up and running? And we already have, Andor's just getting done. Ahsoka season 2 is in the pipeline. I think their primary focus is going to be what is the next big Star Wars show that we can get up and running after this is going to be done into 2027, 2028. I just have a hard time seeing them allocating a lot of money towards a second season of a show that I'm not sure a ton of people are watching. And that's just me from the business standpoint of Lucasfilm. We don't know. Or at least I haven't seen the numbers come out of maybe what the budget was for everything going on here. Maybe it wasn't as expensive as some of these others for them to make. I have a feeling with some of the names involved in this project, plus Jude Law being involved, this probably was a pretty extensive budget for this show. And I don't know if they're going to see the return on investment from that in season 1 in a climate where if you don't see immediate return on investment with some of these streaming shows, you just kind of give up and you go to the next thing. Second, do I think this show could have that potential to grow and be really exciting and evolve? I do. I think that we've seen enough from the season to have that happen. And we're going to harp on this, I think, during our review of the episode. It's just, it kind of shoots itself in the foot sometimes with the episode ended 25 and a half minutes in to the second to last episode of the show. And it just feels like that's disjointed enough where they're leaving so much meat on the bone of some of these episodes. And I think it could benefit. If you remember Stranger Things, those episodes are 45 minutes to an hour. Some of those episodes, as they get to season 4, are an hour and a half long.
Or
but
movies
season
at
one,
this point.
Season 1, these are all 45-minute to an hour long episodes. And you're talking Skeleton Crew is half that in the runtime. So I don't know what the formula over at Disney Plus is, because it doesn't work for me. Some of the weird disjointed episode times. That's where I am with Skeleton Crew right now. I'm curious where you guys are with this.
I think a lot will depend on Rob's or RG28 comments here. Do we know how true the rumors are that some of them could show up in Dave Filoni's movie? If that movie is as successful as we're hoping, that could spin off some more hype for other Disney Plus miniseries or whatever. We could see these characters again in some form or fashion. As far as how true are those rumors, no idea. We'll have to wait and see on that front. But if these characters do show up on the big screen and if they get popular based off that appearance, we could see them again. As far as right now, I just don't know. I just don't know what their plan is going forward with Disney Plus, with streaming in general. It's just hard to see. And the thing is we're not going to find out until at least Star Wars Celebration, if not beyond that. So right now, I'm going to say there's a chance that we get a season 2 and they follow the Stranger Things model. On the John Watts and Christopher Ford have already said they have an idea for how to go about future seasons. So they're thinking about it. There's definitely conversations being had. Just will they go beyond that? We'll just have to wait and see. But I'm hoping so. Because I despite its faults, I'm still very much enjoying the show, and I can't wait to see how it all wraps up.
What about you, Luke?
I can say similar to you, Nate. I'm enjoying the show. I'm looking forward to seeing it wrap up. As far as will it get a season 2? I'm kind of leaning more toward no. And that's just because I don't know that they're going to commit to having it mature more as a show, as the characters also mature more and grow up. I think it worked for Stranger Things. It's been a wildly successful show. I think it could work for these characters. They're great actors. These child actors are awesome. I think they could absolutely pull this off.
Mhm.
And I don't have any data in front of me as to far as how many views this show has. I don't know if those
Not
are even
much.
freely released, but I
I
was
just
gonna
looked at
say
Nielsen, and the first week didn't even chart in the top 10, and the bottom 10, and number 10 was at like 380 million, which was lower than pretty much any Acolyte episode. So we're already borderline lowest of the Acolyte, so which
Mhm.
isn't a good sign. Because if we're
That's-
measuring
Yeah.
it on the Acolyte, yeah, I don't know.
Mhm.
so
But here's the thing though, Luke, is I think it all comes back to the problem that these episodes are so half baked, and this can
that's yes,
segue
that's what it is too.
perfectly. Yeah, we can segue perfectly into the episode 7 review. We're starting off with the characters like the parents who have now fully assembled this transceiver that can just transmitter that can go beyond the barrier to send out the signal, but we don't see any of the meetings between them of getting that set together, of them wanting to meet in the forest. I don't feel the stakes with the parents. I've spent absolutely no time with them when we could have had some longer drawn out times. How are they coping without their children? How are they coping with not trusting the system now that is they know is not going to try to get their kids back? Like, we need to discover more of what's going on behind this. We heard the supervisor speak on the intercom in this episode, but we haven't really heard tale of the supervisor for the last few episodes either. And it feels like there's so much more there to explore, while we have Jude Law, who is a world-class A-list actor that has, supposedly this episode we are going to find out more about him as a character, his backstory. I don't know anything more about Jod after this episode, really. And it feels like his character is very superficially and shallow. We don't see a lot of depth there. Maybe he's just having fun playing this, pirate-like character. But I would expect a little bit more from a script and for, a show with Jude Law leading the helm. And that's my problem, is that we finish at 25 minutes in this episode. And I'm thinking this was the second last episode that you may ever have of Skeleton Crew. And we can't do something here at Disney to stretch at Lucasfilm to stretch these out and give me more reason to keep being invested. I just, it's frustrating that this is something that I think we've had a conversation about since season 1 of The Mandalorian.
Yeah, I think that's honestly where my problem is lying right now with this show, is that just for me personally, when I'm watching this show, I'm feeling it so much more than any of the other shows. Is that like kind of you said, there's half baked. Like, I feel like these questions are asking themselves of what about the supervisor? What about like the parents meeting up? I don't feel like I'm digging. I'm like trying to find reasons why I need to learn more. I genuinely feel like the story is requiring more telling, and so I think that's kind of where I'm at, is like, if we're gonna do season 2, let's get a little bit more. There's
Right.
more that we can tell, and it's not like you're digging needlessly. Like, there's more story here to tell, and we're not telling it. So I want more.
Because people want to make that Stranger Things comparison, because it's kids, it's a little bit quirky, sci-fi stuff involved, but people forget that Stranger Things dives deep into all of the characters in its story. Like, you don't feel
Yes.
shortchanged
Oh my
for the most
goodness.
part. Like, there are seasons that better than others and stories better than others in Stranger Things, but you don't necessarily come away feeling really shortchanged with Stranger Things character development or episodes.
No.
If you may not agree with directions they take them and you don't love where it's going, but they at least for the most part give you the journey that they're going on, instead of, we're just jumping from point A to point B without really seeing how that happens. But Nate, I know you're a big fan of, you have been a fan of this show and you've really enjoyed these moments. And are you feeling similarly, or are you still pretty positive here as we enter to the finale?
I'm feeling similar. I will say, in my opinion, it's not just a Skeleton Crew issue. It's
Right.
a Disney Plus issue in general.
Right.
Another show that I know, Tyler, you enjoyed this as well. The issues that are plaguing Skeleton Crew plagued Percy Jackson very much in the same type of way. If you didn't read the Percy Jackson, the book, there are elements of that show that make absolutely zero sense and come off very cheap and weird and just not as fluid as it can be. So many Disney Plus shows face this problem. I think it's a service-wide issue as to I don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but man, it's tough watching these shows because sometimes you enjoy them, sometimes you don't. But when you get a show that you're genuinely interested in, like Skeleton Crew, you want to spend more time with these characters and get to know them on a deeper level and really feel for their plights. We've harped on it in this show several times. The parents in this show are god awful. God, they're every scene we have with them is perfectly fine. It's just more.
Nothing to work with.
Please, like, give us more with these characters so we can understand. Because we learned this episode that they had some idea of what is going on in Ad-Atten, but they're keeping it secret from their kids. What's the deal with that? I mean, like, can we dive into more of this stuff earlier and deal with this instead of doing this whole mystery box thing? It's
Talk about having a world-class actress in Carrie Condon, who I was
know.
so excited to be in this show.
Yes, you were.
And I
She's had about 45 seconds of screen time.
And
Like-
what's the why is she here? Why are you? We have this person, this great talent in Star Wars, and they're served a nothing burger. Like a complete nothing burger.
Giancarlo
It reminds me
Esposito.
of when
It's a
I was in
fascinating character.
high school and I went to Whataburger after a basketball tournament, asked for the double bacon cheeseburger with mustard and not mayonnaise, or with mayonnaise and not mustard, and they gave me no bacon on it. So I took it back and said, "Can I please, get a double bacon cheeseburger with bacon on it?" And instead of just giving me 2 slices of bacon, they gave me back literally a veggie burger because they were mad at me for complaining about it. That's what I feel like I got with Carrie Condon being in, and Jude Law being in the show. I feel like I got like a nothing burger at times because we haven't really taken advantage of this. And I, like you said, Nate, it's a service-wide issue, and I really don't understand because I know they have smart people and they're paying people top dollar to create these
Disney
things.
is so smart. Like, how does this happen with every single thing they do? Marvel, other shows, like, they all had this issue. What is going on?
And you look across other streaming platforms, and it's just not happening over there on the scale that it
wild.
happens
I just
here.
finished watching Shogun. What an amazing
God.
show! I wish we could have
Shogun
something.
is a
Which
Hulu
technically
Disney
is on
project.
Disney Plus now.
It is on Disney Plus.
It's
now,
on
Make
right?
it make
Disney Plus
sense.
now.
Make it make sense.
And I go like on Paramount, and I watch Star Trek a lot. Star Trek has this much of probably the budget and the fan base right now of like Star Wars, but the shows 55 minutes, they're in 45 minutes, well drawn out. You go on Max and you're getting shows like The Penguin, Doom Prophecy they're well drawn out, lengthy episodes. They may not be the best show in the world, even some of those. I've heard mixed things about Doom, but every single streaming service you can go through and name some of the flagship shows that are on there right now, and boom, they are well drawn out, well developed.
It's not
shows.
all about length either. You can do a lot in 30 minutes. But,
yes.
But 30 minutes, but only like 7-8 episodes. You can only do so much with that. That is the problem. A lot of these like great half-hour shows, they have 20 episode seasons where they could do a lot of cool things. So it's like there's just I don't know why they do this to themselves. And despite all of that, Skeleton Crew is still overall a very good show. It's just it could be better. It could be better. And if we're trying to get a second season for the show, trying to get more hype for these shows, we need to hold them to the standards of your Penguins, of your Last of Us's, all these other high tier shows. You got to hold it to that standard if you want people to actually
Mhm.
watch these shows.
Absolutely. But so been really negative. I
God,
will
Silo
say
is so good.
we'll go into our highs of episode 7. We'll go into our highs of episode 7 here. Like get some positivity back into the fold.
I have a lot of positive things to say about this episode.
Okay.
I love this episode.
Give me the high. Give me the high. Your high of the episode.
But my high of the episode, my overall high, as much as I want to see a redemption next week, seeing Jude Law ham it up as this absolute unhinged villain was a lot of fun to watch this week. Jude Law ate every single moment of his screen time. As much as I wanted to see Brutus go on, Brutus's death was brutal.
That was the low.
Oh,
They
it
killed
was
him.
brutal. Honestly, it's probably my low too, but the actual death
I just
itself
wanted more
was
Brutus.
awesome. It was awesome. Just to see how just abrupt it
Mhm.
was, and then I'm assuming SM33 is going to be fine, but just the act of beheading him, wow, they went for it with the character this week, and some of the things he was saying to the kids as well. It's like, man, they let him go for it, and I think Jude Law is the highlight. Good for the show to let him just really establish himself as the true villain of it. So I think that was probably my biggest highlight. And there's also a lot of great action in this episode as well, especially in the first little bit with trying to figure out how to breach the barrier and some of these other things. I think some of the visuals looked really good in this episode as well.
So that leads into mine. The visuals were what I really loved. The barrier itself, it's swirling green. It looked real good. Anytime we got to see it. And then the other thing that I thought looked awesome was the vault down inside the planet. As you're descending, you're looking at this like strange thing in the middle that's being worked on, this sphere or something, and then you finally get to a platform. You go into the vault, and there's all these credits, Old Republic Mint credits. I thought it all looked really cool. It looked really fun. Jude Law takes that one credit out, and it just spills all over him. I thought the episode looked real cool. So that is kind of my high. It's not one specific moment. I did enjoy this. And sorry to tread all over this again, but I also really liked that like Jude Law got to act the crap out of that character today. It maybe didn't have a lot of depth to the character of Jod Nanawood, but like Jude Law is doing a great job. Like being
he
on
is
screen and
eating
so,
every scene. He is so entertaining to watch in this show.
When he is like
more.
Yeah, when he has stowed away on the Onyx Cinder and he's got the 4 kids lined up, and he's like, "What? And he's kind of just like taking each one.
What are you going to do?
Yeah. So I loved it. It's awesome.
I just am so mad. Like I said, like Brutus death. That was my guy. I wanted more. I could just sit and watch a Brutus take over, Brutus whatever all day long. Why do like Archie says? Why do all the cool looking and interesting characters have to die?
Another character. I mean, Brutus we got more time with than some of the characters, but I wanted more. I wanted more of him, man. Like
But no, it was a good looking episode. I think the whole series has been, pretty solid in terms of the visuals. But yeah, Jod having the lightsaber and just kind of holding it out there as a threat was really interesting. I thought seeing him when his hands were bound and how quickly he just kind of used the Force to just undo his binds there. Like he was just waiting for the moment to do that. Like he could have done that at any point. It was just he's waiting for the opportune moment, so to speak. And I really enjoyed that. The whole episode, I just wish we get a little bit more out of what's going on at Aten and this planet, the supervisor, and the problem that I think it put itself into, which a lot of these Star Wars shows do, is they kind of hinge everything on the finale. And
another Disney Plus problem. Why do they do this to themselves?
Like it feels like they just put so much pressure on these finales to just be 10 out of 10s in order for every single storyline to weave together and conclude in a proper way, but also you feel satisfied with everything that you've seen. And they do this to themselves quite often. And so I'm a little bit nervous to see what that looks like next week, but I'm optimistic. I'm still optimistic, but I was a little concerned about that. And honestly, the barrier was one of the cooler things that we've
Oh,
seen
yeah.
from Disney Plus. Honestly, Star Wars, I thought that was just awesome to see this giant. I would love to know more about how it's constructed and or how like these electro fields work, things like that. Like I think that would be really cool to get to explore more of as well. But I'm enjoying this
I wonder
for
if
what
it's
it is.
similar to the Nihil storm wall and how that functions.
That's what I really thought of first. I was waiting for some scav droids to come out of nowhere and
Yeah.
start tearing some ships apart.
What I was thinking of Operation Cinder from
Yeah,
like
that too.
that.
Oh,
There's
okay.
some like elements of that when we
That's
got to Ad
possible.
Akron.
That's possible. We're in the same
Yeah.
timeline as that could be. So that's
Also,
a
I was kind of
possibility.
surprised that the barrier is like so far off the planet. I thought the barrier was like in the sky of like atmosphere on the planet. So the fact that you can
Mhm.
like fly like for like half an hour until through the barrier and then get to the planet, it's like the planet's like deep inside the barrier. I thought it was just like in the sky for them to see. So that was cool. Cool revelation.
Also, who is programming the droids? How stupid are they? You got the Republic emissary just cackling with all of the coins that are falling on him, and none of the droids thought,
Yeah.
this is kind of odd. That was funny to me.
The droids didn't
Like, it was
care
just funny.
at all.
And they're like, all right.
The droids are so weird, man, in this show. I mean, I enjoy them, but yeah, like I don't know what's going on half the time with some of this stuff.
We'll see what happens. Do we have any finale predictions that we want to share?
I think obviously we got the tease this last episode. We're gonna see the supervisor. We're gonna see or get that revelation, no matter if the person's living or dead or whatever the case is. I think I saw that the voice that we heard was Stephen Fry, which is quite a lovely selection for that character. I don't know what that will manifest in terms of the supervisor that we'll see next week. We'll have to wait and find out. I think a lot of the mystery of Ad Atten can just be solved with a monologue from him answering a lot of the questions.
As long as it doesn't turn into
which will be
the
disappointing.
Architect or something from like the Matrix 2, the Matrix Reloaded.
Which will be very disappointing. It's like you have to tell us. You can't show us some of this stuff and have it like matter for the story. It has to be like just this last like 5 minutes, just wrap up all the plot holes that you left yourself in with the show. I'm nervous that all the Old Republic stuff is going to end up not meaning a whole lot, which is going to be sad. It feels like we're leaning that direction because we don't really have any idea what Ad Atten is in the grand scheme of everything and why it's still hidden away from the prying eyes of the Republic. So we'll have to wait and see on that. In terms of Jod, which I don't know how anyone can get into the planet, if anyone can come help, like the New Republic or even Jod's pirate friends. I don't know if anyone can even breach the barrier. So I don't really know what the final conflict of this show is going to look like next week. So I'm very curious how that's going to play out.
So I have a big brain theory that will never happen, but I think if this was going to be a show that could add some sort of significant lore element to it, and there be a tie-in to Filoni's movie as well, I wonder if, there's clearly just this massive treasure trove here on Ad Atten. And again, there's zero way this happens, but I don't know. My mind is just interested in playing this out. We're getting seeds of how the First Order comes to be. and we're getting seeds of like this whole cloning thing with the Emperor, and he has this massive fleet on Exegol that needs to be constructed or continue to be constructed. That, you know, a lot of people have asked questions. Well, how did the First Order just rise up with this giant fleet, or how did Palpatine get this giant, you know, fleet out of nowhere?
final
And I
order.
wonder if could there be some sort of way where Thrawn has learned the secrets of AT-AT and he robs this vault, and secretly they're using this treasure trove to fund the construction of starships. It doesn't have to be this big thing, but I just wonder if they could even have like a little nod where they discovered a treasure on an old planet that is able to seed the funding for these things, where they could spread it out around the galaxy in enough quantity to start building these massive starships. Because it is kind of funny how out of the seeds of the Empire, the First Order existed, and boom, they just have a fleet of dreadnoughts, and then Palpatine's got his giant Exegol, whatever. It doesn't have to be a major storyline or anything. I just wonder if they're gonna try to tie some lore into the sequels, which I think Filoni's movie is gonna do a little bit of. That might be the only way I could see something from Skeleton Crew like actually mattering in that movie from that perspective.
That's a good point. I've been trying to
Maybe.
make sense of how this is going to fit into the rest of Star Wars in general, and especially since this is part of the Mandoverse, that like how is it going to connect to this specific storyline? And that's about the best as I could come up with, is like there's funding that is needed for the First Order to rise. So I am with you. I do think that makes sense as to how it could.
Director Krennic is somewhere rolling in his grave that he didn't discover AT-AT at the time
Yeah.
of the Empire, when he's
over
literally
budget
just
and
going
behind
around
schedule.
begging people for some credits. Oh my goodness. So fantastic stuff. Any final stuff for the episode, Luke? Any prediction for you for next week?
The barrier is going to come down. AT-AT will rejoin the galaxy at large, and they will not be happy with how the New Republic tries to run their planet. They've been happy with how their life is going, so there's going to be tensions between AT-AT and the New Republic.
Okay, that could be interesting.
I don't know.
Fascinating to see if they're discovered. I do think it's going to end with some cryptic, like Jod escapes custody and like kind of he's out there, so to speak. I could see him and Wim sharing the final shot between the two of them being Wim kind of knows that he's out there, and Wim just kind of lets him go. He could alert the guards that he's escaped or something, and they kind of just share a look. Wim kind of gives him a chance to do the right thing, and Jod takes the selfish approach, and he does something selfish to end. And Wim, turns away, but he feels confident about who he is and his place, and that's like him almost outgrowing his need to be impressed, to impress Jod or need Jod. And I think he might end with I don't think we're gonna get this redemptive episode for Jod next week. I mean, it's not going to be a full-blown redemption. It might be he doesn't decide to start offing kids, which I don't think that necessarily means he's like a redeemed character, though. I think he's going to end with like a selfish arc that shows a lack of growth, and it's going to be focused more on the kids being able to move on. However, I'm a Jod stan, so I will also stand by him.
We believe in Jod on this show. We believe in Jod. There is good in him, God. Damn it. There is good in that man. It's just buried in the need for greed so deeply into his soul. And again, I wish they would dive more into that, and I hope they do in the finale. We'll have to see how they play with that. That's what I'm most going to be.
When Padme said there's still good in him, she was actually referring to Jod Nawood.
Oh man,
she had a
confirmed.
She had a premonition. She had a vision of the Force. It was actually Jod. She's just like, Obi-Wan, there is good in him. Anakin,
there's a world
Jod.
where Jod could be a very nice little side villain in a Filoni movie, just as this minor threats that the New Republic has to deal with. So they could leave that off as a cliffhanger. He could escape and do something, kind of leave things off with the kids. I'm kind of like the kids know they could get to Jod and kind of turn him around if they get another crack at it, but they won't quite get there.
Yeah.
But it's going to be weird to not get a Skeleton Crew season 2 in that scenario. To just wrap up that plot line in a movie and not get the conclusion of that inside a series or something. So that's a whole other conversation.
Whole lot to finish in one episode.
That's always the problem with these Disney Plus shows. I feel like they could do it if they're if this runtime is correct, and I haven't looked into this at all. I have no idea what to make of, but a 50-minute finale, which in Disney Plus terms is about 43-ish minutes, which that's a solid runtime. That's pretty solid. They could do a lot in that runtime. That's pretty much the length of your normal cable television episode, which is totally enough. I mean, there's enough ways they can get a satisfying finale out of this, but yeah, I just hope they can stick the landing, because that's always the fear with these shows, that they don't stick the landing. I am pulling for a redemption arc for Jod, and I'm going to stick with that because that's my social media gimmick on the Star Wars Newsnet Twitter thing. So I'm going to be pushing that for the next few days. And if it doesn't happen, I'm going to have some answering to do. Maybe we'll do something fun next week if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, we'll have to think of something.
Okay.
It's been a fun episode.
Tyler has been the leader of the Vernestra Row fan club. And I think we now know that Nate Manning is the leader of the Jod Nawood fan club. So we've got 2 fan club leaders here. I'm just really happy to be in the presence of both of you guys, honestly.
Fan club presidents.
Yeah,
presidents.
Self-appointed presidents.
You're in the presence of royalty, sir.
The Senate. All right, it's a great episode, everybody. Thanks for hopping on. Check out the Timeline show this weekend. Probably coming out on Sunday. Me and Luke will go through episodes 5 and 6 of Young Jedi Adventures. We recorded that earlier this week. We'll get a Monday, Tuesday pod out in time for us. But this was a great discussion this week. Thanks for hopping on, everybody. Nate, I hope to see a 5th Nubs behind you next week. We added a couple more this week. I hope to see a few more in the future.
I hope so too. I am going to be trying to add more Nubs, at least one a week, until Lucasfilm decides to announce when the show will return, because I need more Nubs in my life. So I will be enabling you guys to give me more Nubs by giving your stores money and buying the stock of your Nubs. So give me more show, please.
Everyone stay safe out there. Join the Discord channel for us, and we can talk some more Star Wars, on Discord if you want to join us.
Stay
Luke,
safe out there on the West Coast as well. I don't know, Oscar, if you're dealing with the fires at all, but we once again send all our wishes out to our best wishes out to all of you of dealing with any of those. But
absolutely. Remember, everyone, for light and life, and remember, we are all the Republic.